And then we'll get started. So, welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Eby Theo. I'm one of the co-founders of Resilient Leaders Institute. And joining me on the podcast today is Aysha Khan. Welcome in, Aysha.
Hello, Abby. I'm so glad to be here. And I just have a feeling this podcast is going to be very different than what I normally do. Well, I normally am myself, but this podcast, I think I'm going to just show the world the real me.
I love it. So before we get started, Aisha, just to let the world know, Aisha is the Chief Information Officer and the Chief Information Security Officer at Treasure Data. That's not all. Aisha has also been named a Cybersecurity Leader of the Year and one of the top 100 inspirational women in cybersecurity. That's not all. She's also a board advisor and an executive coach. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat today. So, again, welcome, Aisha. We're excited to have you. And just to kick things off, tell us how you got started as a CISO and a CIO.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for that intro. That was very humbling. But I do want to start off by saying none of those things define me. If you ask
Mm.
me, none of those things. When I talk to people in my real life, I tell them those things are just a byproduct of what I do so well. But what defines me is I'm peace, love, and abundant. And
I
that matters.
love it.
Yeah, so what defines me is the little things that I do that bring me joy, how I show up in my truth every day. That's what defines me. How do I lead and what kind of world I want to leave behind? That's what defines me. So you asked me a question, how did I get into being a CIO and CISO? Um, Let me actually crack a joke here. Almost 2 years ago, I think I was in a conference in Spain, and somebody randomly asked me, actually, not randomly, in that meeting again, you will see when you get to know me, I'm very playful and very passionate. And actually, it's a good segue to tell you I describe myself as someone who's living in 6 words,
Okay.
living intentionally, passionately, fearlessly every day. Those are my 6 words. So I was this passionate person in the conference talking about ideas and big thinking. And one guy comes up to me and he's like, "Did you always want to be a CISO?" And I laughed and I said, "You know what? Growing up, I did not know there was a thing called CISO. So, no, that was not the goal. I always, well, as a kid, I wanted to be a scientist. That's what I knew. But later on, I realized I wanted to be a person of value.
Mm.
That's what I care about. Day in, day out, I just want to show up and do my absolute best. And as I'm doing my absolute best, I have, and as I said, a lot is going to come out in this podcast. I have a very deep spiritual side, and I feel my worldly gift is understanding technology and business. That's what I have studied for. My spiritual gift is bringing awakeness or showing people their own greatness,
Mm.
you know? So, how did I get to where I am? Simply one, showing up fully, passionately, fearlessly every day, and seeing a problem and creating value there. And in the process, seeing people around me who I see fully, um, their gifts, their potential, and awakening them to that potential. And then when people see that I'm invested in their success, I am building amazing teams, delivering great value. It's all compounding from there. So not only that I see others, people above me saw me, and then they were like, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" And one thing led to another, became a CISO, became a CIO. So I did not give you a technical answer that you were expecting. I'm giving you a reality answer so that people can take away from this podcast. Becoming a CIO, CISO shouldn't be a goal. Delivering value should be anyone's goal. And then from there, sky is the limit. And I'm not
Amazing.
stopping here. Who knows, tomorrow I might be a CEO, CEO, who knows what.
A woman with ambition. She's always welcome. Well, love that. This is so great because as you were talking, there were specific points that were just kind of highlighted. And I think one of the key things is you talk about your spiritual background and how you bring that into leadership. And we're quite curious here. So, what is something, a challenge that you have encountered in your journey as a leader, and how has your spiritual background helped you, or if not spiritual background, but how have you navigated that challenge?
Mm. I mean, the reality is, I often describe this world as a play field, so please don't take it too seriously. So that's what I was telling you. I never forget that I'm here playing a role in this big picture,
Mm,
and that role is important. Um, First of all, I believe the fact that I matter. Forget about spirituality. I'll give you a very simple thing. Even if you are not religious, not spiritual, I don't care, none of that matter. This, you can experience your body. That's a physical entity, right? That's the evidence right there. If you exist, simply you matter,
mm,
right? If you matter, your experience of life matters. And my mission to myself first is I am going to make my experience of life a blissful experience. No else, no if, no but. And with that, I'm going to answer your second question: how do I navigate? Just because we are in the play field, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be roadblocks, and they are going to be, well, they are going to be for multiple reasons. One, things in our control, things not in our control. I always say your thought creates your reality. If you are someone who is always anxious, depressed, overthinker, you are always seeing what can go wrong, I can guarantee you, you will experience people in shape and form where things are wrong, and you have to just step up and then find a way to solve. But then there are things which are in your control. So coming back to this point, when as a leader I run into challenges, first and foremost I remind myself, is it something I created in my head or is it something outside of my control? Because dealing with other humans who forget what it means to be human, they will create problems for other humans, you know. So
yeah,
the first thing I do is grounding myself in compassion. When I
mm,
am in such situation and I feel something is not going the way I would have hoped it would go, I remind of myself of other people's humanity. People are complex beings. They are not perfect. They have their own insecurities. They have their own
yeah.
trauma. How do I want to show up? How do I want to respond to that situation? Then I go from there. So, no matter what the situation is, first and foremost, I see what is going to be my response. That's in my control. Should this thing create chaos for me, or should I bring clarity to the situation? And I kid you not, 90% of the times, challenges that I run into, often they are because there was lack of clarity.
Mm,
And it is as simple as talking to the other person, helping them understand what happened, what was the context, what assumptions were being made. And then when you have a human dialogue and you bring that calm and clarity, oftentimes things de escalate.
mm.
And then from there, you see a path forward and then you just get on it.
Amazing, amazing. You bring a very grounded, calm presence to your leadership, and I think a lot of the listeners are curious into what's a day-to-day for Aisha, and what are some of the things that you do to ground yourself and enable you to be able to show up the way that you show up?
Yeah, I often talk about this, call it, I coined a term called soul ops. You know, like we have business operations, technical operations, development operations, whatever you want to call it, because I live in a technical world, all these terms are very common. I came up with soul ops, soul operations.
Okay.
So for me personally, what I do is I don't start my day without meditation.
Mm,
And what I call, forget about meditation in this context, but what I do is we charge our phones, we charge our devices, we charge our gadgets, whatever you want to call it, right? We need to charge this soul every day, whether you do it at night, whether you do it in the morning, but to remind. Actually, the soul already knows the path. It already knows its mission. It already knows its gifts. It's the human body forgets, right? So what I do is every morning I get up, whether I go for a walk or I sit in a sitting meditation posture, I remind myself who I am, why I'm here, what matters to my existence, what value am I here to bring to the world. And that 5-10 minutes meditation reminds me or fuels me with that energy that I need for the day. And in that process, I become clear of what are the three priorities that I have. And I remind myself no matter what happens, I will show up in my power, in my presence. The outside factors will not change my core. That's how I lead.
Amazing. Amazing. Inside out.
Inside out.
Regulating from
Also,
inside out.
inward to upward.
Inward to outward. Exactly. I love that. And I'm so curious now because we've talked a lot about how you regulate your internals, which affects your externals. Knowing that you lead a team, how do you almost kind of like translate that to your team? Because there's a lot of pressure in cybersecurity and technology right now. How does Aisha, as the soul, the person who performs soul ops and the CIO and CISO, how does that come across to your team and how do you help them navigate that?
Yeah. First thing I want to call out this myth. I am a firm believer in positive affirmation. The words
Mm.
scary weight. I mean, look, I am a CIO and CISO. I don't feel pressure. I don't, and I don't feel burnout.
I think this needs to go viral, Aisha. I have never heard that from any technical leader ever.
So I don't know why they're burnout or why I'm not.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but I'll tell you. I tell this to my team and, in fact, to my whole organization. Burnout doesn't come from doing too much.
Mm,
It comes from doing what's not aligned.
mm,
And that's my motto, my North Star. If I'm aligned, everything falls into place. There is a difference between what's important and what's urgent, you know. But more important is clarity. And clarity is once you are aligned, you know what matters. And once you know what matters, then you know what is urgent and what is important. And then you just follow that path. And why are you feeling the pressure? The other thing I always tell security leaders or even technical leaders, there is no 100% security.
mm.
Stop selling that. There is no 100% security. You have to define your risk tolerance and then you have to operate within that boundary. So if you have, again, we talked about soul operation, if you have the right operations in place, um, you will know how to not take the outside stressors and burn yourself. Now, how do I infuse in my team? The exact same way how I show up. The other day, I was having a meeting with my team, and somebody said something in the context of there was a challenge, and they're like, "I was told to be well, I was instructed to do this," and I told this person, "Let me tell you a secret. 99% of the world does not know what they're doing, and it is so more important for us to show up in full integrity. What was your instinct in that moment?" And he knew the answer. And he was like, yes, I would have done it a different way. Then I told him, be the leader that you see is missing in the world. Follow your instinct. Often, when you get guidance and your instinct tells you this doesn't make sense, your soul is telling you this doesn't make sense. Don't sign up for it. In fact, that is the moment to rise. You show up and say, wait a minute. I want to bring clarity to this situation. I want to bring integrity to this situation or grace to this situation, whatever you want to call it. So I tell my leaders a couple of things. I would like to share my philosophy here. One, be the leader that we don't see in the world. Second, don't react to situations, respond. You don't have to
Mm.
have a response right there. If you think you need time, take your time and say, let me process this. I'm going to come back to it. Third, I always tell them I am not going to promote anyone if you guys are not investing in other people. So that's,
Mm,
talking about setting a standard, that's the standard I've set for my team. If you are not bringing other people with you,
mm,
and I'm seeing how you are bringing other people with you, I'm going to invest in leaders who are bringing those people with them. Once one of my leader was asking me, imagine I have a situation where two people equally doing great work. Who should I promote? And my answer to him was the one with the highest intention.
mm.
Because doing good work matters, but having great intentions is even more important, because the person who has great intentions and is a high performer, now that person will be thinking for everyone's highest and greatest good. And those are the people we need in the industry, in the world. So that's my leadership philosophy. And I show up every day with the exact same clarity. So they know this is how I lead. And that brings calm and peace in our organization as well. So I think somewhere I hope it rubs on them and they become those leaders too.
You know what I really appreciate about this conversation is you speak like, oh, it's very gentle and it's common knowledge. And I've had the opportunity to talk with a lot of leaders, and what you communicate as ease is what majority of people struggle with. And I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, which takes me to my next question, Aisha, because you are a woman in tech leadership. There's a lot of women who don't have the confidence. You
Yeah.
said you don't feel pressure. I said this needs to go viral. In cybersecurity, I've never heard anyone say that. And as a woman, saying that, I think that's a different, there's a different level of confidence that you must feel in yourself. So, what would you say to women who don't have that confidence, looking to be where you are?
Yeah, every question that you're asking, that could be a separate podcast in itself. I have a lot to share with the world, and that's going to come in many different shape and form, but this is one medium right now. So you're asking a very loaded question. And the way I think I can do justice to it, there are multiple things. Um, I want to start off by saying one of the things that I notice women do not so well is asking for permission.
Mm,
Look, I'll tell you, I'm not someone who takes sides, men versus women. I actually feel I'm here for everyone. I'm allied to men and I'm allied to women. For men, I feel they just don't have awareness. They don't know what good looks like when it comes to be a good ally to women. And that's where I want to show up and help and guide them. Whereas women, I think they have different challenges. Call it cultural, call it the evolution of women, evolution of where we are as a society. But a lot of women fall into this trap that we have to seek permission.
mm,
Going back to the point, I don't ask for permission. And it's not that I ask for forgiveness. No, my philosophy is very simple. I am here to create value. And if I see a problem, remember what I said earlier? Once, if you see a problem, naturally, that problem is there for you to solve. Go solve it. Once you add value, people around you will see that, wow, she can do this. And she keeps seeing things and fixing them. I want this person on my team. I want this person to take on more problems. What I see a lot of the times, and I try to guide and mentor junior women in our organization, and wherever I see them doing this, when I see they're asking for too much permission, my first question is, who stopped you?
mm,
Go do it. You see there is a problem, you see you can add value, go do it. That's number one. Number two, now it's not about women, this is human nature, external validation.
mm,
I don't have a need for validation. I feel whatever I do is a sense of responsibility. I'm here to serve. I'm not here to impress anyone. And when you have this clear sense that this is your responsibility, I don't really care who is watching, who's not watching, who's going to, like pat on my back and say, oh, great job. I don't care. I'm so anchored in who I am, why I'm here, and call it divinely connected that I really don't need humans validation. The only hope I want from women is like, just take care of yourself. I'm fine on my own. Um, I think going back to what women can do, one, stop asking for permission. Number two, work on going more inward.
Mm.
The person that you see here today, I wasn't like that always. Let me explain that. When we come into this play field, matrix, simple English, this world, the conditioning of the world takes over. Have you ever seen a kid who is below 5 years of age? They don't have to worry about where the food comes from. They don't worry about where the love comes from. They just know that they are loved. They don't go to their parents and say, do you love me? They just know that they are loved, right?
That's true. Yeah.
And right after around that time, the conditioning starts taking over, and then we start asking questions of validation. Am I loved? Do my friends love me? Um, does that uncle love me? Or how do I look? That's what I'm talking about conditioning. And that by the time we are in our 30s, guess what? How much damage has been done?
That's true.
So, for the last 10 years of my life, I've been on my journey where I am learning everything that I was not supposed to learn what I have come here to learn. So, this has been the work so far that I have unlearned all that conditioning and become the person that I am. And that comes from going inward. Inward meaning realizing that you are enough, you are worthy, you are loved. I often do this exercise with my clients. What are you sure of? And you will be surprised to see when I say, what are you sure of? Very simple things. What do you love doing? What are the little big things? What are you sure of? And the answers are, I love waking up to seeing sunrise. I love having a cup of tea. I love going for walks. None of the big things. And the purpose of that exercise is to remind you, you don't need the big things to be joyful. And that gratitude, that stillness, that presence then gives you the assurance, what was I chasing?
Mm.
And I'll give you a secret here. Going inward, my outward trajectory has changed. Meaning, people might think, and I often say that peaceful people or spiritual people or whatever you want to call it are not ambitious. Actually, I'll tell you, I have never been more ambitious because now I have the clarity of life. I'm aligned with my life's purpose. And as I become more clear on who I know that now I'm worthy and I am loved. I don't need external things anyway. All those things are byproduct are coming automatically toward me. Call it success, call it promotions, call it money, influence, platform, whatever you want. So the beauty is once you go inward, there is no way, but it will start showing up outward.
Mm.
And the second thing is instead of you chasing, you will start attracting. So my self-assurance, it's not arrogance, it's self-assurance. It comes from me doing that deep work.
Wow. That was a mini masterclass on its own when it comes to deep work. And I love what you said because there's a theme that I pretty much anyone who's watching is going to recognize about you is whether that's in your, technology role or we'll talk about your role as a, coach. There's this pattern of do the internal work, and the external, whether that's in your literature, will show. And what I find so interesting about all of this is again that you are practicing this duality. So yes, you're ambitious. Yes, you want to be you are successful and you want more success based on what I heard from you. But you also have that spiritual side, that grounding, that knowing that none of that determines who Aisha is. Aisha is Aisha.
I'll tell you, to me, success is very simple. My success criteria is how much have I laughed today?
Ah. Okay.
And based off of this, the more I am present, the more
Mm,
I'm joyful, my vibration is at its highest. You know a thing or two about manifestation, and if you
yeah,
do, there is a very simple rule to manifestation. You don't get what you want, you get what you
true.
become,
Yeah.
what you are.
What you are, yes.
And when I am what you are, like in that context, I am peaceful, I am joyful, guess what I'm attracting?
More peace, more joy, more of all the good things.
Yeah.
And again, Aisha, this has been such an interesting conversation, and we're getting towards the end of the minute here, but I think there's a lot of people who are watching you right now that are curious because you mentioned 10 years ago, you finally figured out that you're here to do specific things and that clarity. What was, as much as you can share, of course, what was that push and trigger that made you realize that all of this is all externals and all of that stuff? I need to figure out who I am as a leader and as a woman too.
Yeah. There are a lot coming to my mind. I'm trying to summarize in my head so that I can articulate that. Um, there are always cues. Cues like actually there are a few things that I want to say. I don't believe there's a thing called midlife crisis. I don't.
Mm.
I'll tell you why. And you guys can ask me any spiritual question and I'll have an answer for that now. But I'll tell you, like in simple English, um, humans come in three phases.
Mhm.
First, let's say the average life is around 70, 80. You divide, that comes out to be until 20s, mid 20s, then mid 50s, and then you go upward. So there are three phases. The first phase by design is experimentation.
Mm.
We come in, we take over the conditioning, and the work is to not learn. But we learn that because firsthand we need those experiences. There is a beautiful saying. There is a poet that I love a lot, Rumi. He said, "Where the crack opens, there is a wound. Where the crack opens, the light enters." Something
Mm.
along those lines. What you experience in that first phase, heartbreak, anxiety, depression, lack of alignment, whatever, those are signals that something needs to crack open,
Mm.
right? Once the light enters, your second phase starts. And most of the time, that second phase is your mid 30s. So when psychologists out there talk about, midlife crisis, I call it, it's not midlife crisis, it's a spiritual awakening.
Mm.
Yes, we can talk more about that in another podcast. But we all, by design, have come here on this play field to learn, to grow, to evolve, and support others in their journey. Period. And until in our mid 20s, 30s, if we keep sleeping, something shakes us. What is that something is our soul? Our soul is like, okay, do you remember I've been here whispering
Mm.
to you, asking you to go big, asking you to be bold, asking you to take risk, asking you to be aligned. And we are like, I'm overthinking. I don't want to listen to this. This will, or if you are truly honest, you will say, I don't want to listen to this because it will ask me to get out of my comfort zone. And I don't want to do
Mm. Yeah.
that. So, just like that, spiritual awakening is by design. I was also going through that process. But why? for me happen at the time it happened. Look, as a kid, I used to ask a lot of questions, all sorts of questions. Why do we have to pray? Why do we have to do this? Why do we have to do that? And often my mom would be like, why do you have to ask so many questions? Why can't you just follow along? What I realized, I'm not going to get answers. And even the answers that I got were not coming from a place of love, were coming from a place of fear. And let me explain that. I now think, whether if you believe in God or a higher consciousness, whatever you call it, I call it higher consciousness. Higher consciousness is my best friend, you know? And I have simple dialogue and conversation with this higher consciousness. And I'm like, okay. So one of the things growing up, I was asked to fast, and I asked, why do we have to fast? And the answer was, you have to fast because when you're fasting, you feel compassion for underprivileged, right? And I told my mom, I'm already compassionate. Why do I have to fast to feel that? So I challenged norms. And then came a phase where I realized if I ask too many questions, I'll be kicked out. So, me being a smart girl, I realized I should stay quiet, find a way to just become a person of value, and then I will find out my own answers. In that teenage time till mid 30s, conditioning took over. I got busy with the world, got married, had kids, one promotion, this promotion, one job, another job. That was routine. And my soul whisper getting louder and louder. What happened to that girl who used to ask questions? What happened to that girl who wanted to do things bigger than herself? And that's one day I was just sitting thinking, I touch wood, I had a beautiful life, health, wealth, family, everything that you could ask for. But I knew there's something missing. And for me, it was fulfillment. It's like, there gotta be more to life. And that thing led me to meditation. I wanted some stillness, some solitude so that I can just listen to myself. There's so much noise outside
Nice. Yeah.
that we don't hear ourselves. Now I have a practice. I try to do as much as I can. Not always successful with kids' routines, but once a quarter, I like to just go out in the woods, just by myself or my partner, and then we just meditate that weekend, just to listen to ourselves. And that anchors us more into I'm clean. I know that I'm not looking for external validation. I know that I'm clear on my mission. I know that I know who I am. And then from there, there is just like, gosh, let's roll up our sleeves and do the work that we have come here to do. So that is a short answer, not me only. We all go through those emotions. How we channel and how do we use that energy to positively contribute to the world is that's what the work is. I'm glad that I got on it, and now I try to help as many people asking this question to help them get on their journeys.
Amazing. That was so beautiful to hear. And we're just coming towards the end here, and we could keep talking, Aisha, because you are such an interesting guest, and so it's it's amazing again the duality that you carry and your ability to show up grounded in a high pressure field. For those who don't work in cybersecurity, it's on steroids when it comes to stress. So Aisha showing up like this is not it there you've heard the things that she's done and continues to do to be able to stay grounded. So Aisha, as a final question,
Oh,
okay, especially for leaders within this industry, because we do have a lot of cybersecurity leaders that are going to watch this. Um, what is one thing that you would say to them to encourage them when it comes to dealing with the pressure, dealing with the stress, and all of that stuff? Just one thing that can make a huge change for them.
again, it's a loaded question. I mean, if they are feeling pressure, my take is burnout comes from misalignment, not just hard work. So they have to reflect back. Are they working hard or they're working smart? In
Mm.
fact, I have two daughters, 9 and 11, and I keep telling them, When they look at me, they're like, Mama, you're working hard. I'm like, I don't work hard. I work smart. I want to infuse that mindset. What's the point of working hard? That's one. So differentiate what needs to be done versus what is not. But the key is alignment. Again, I go back to alignment. Alignment of first and foremost who you are, who you want to show up as. I will tell you a few things that my cybersecurity or CISO community complain about. We are not getting a budget. How do you get budget? I write a lot about those things on LinkedIn, so please see a full LinkedIn post for that. But a quick answer is one, it starts with trust. I have built trusted relationships, not only in the organization, with any interaction that I have. If there is no trust, there is no relationship.
Yeah.
Then I have my math behind my calculation. So for leaders who are feeling they are not getting attention from their leadership or their CEO doesn't feel cybersecurity is important, I talk about those things again and again. Is one, you need to first get clear with who you are as a leader. How do you show up as that leader? And then how do you articulate the value that you bring to the organization? And with that articulation, don't don't hope that there's often a translation problem as well. It's like our technical mind wants to hear technical validation or technical recognition, in that sense. Like they think a blank check means success. No, speak in business language. Speak as simply as possible. One of the things I think I have done well is I take the technical stuff and transform that into non-technical form for audience, which is non-technical. And I tell them, what is this work? How do I do it? And why it is important to the organization and what value it creates. When you do that, one, there is trust. Second, there is alignment internally and externally. And that should automatically make you feel you are seen, you are appreciated, there is respect, you know what you are doing, and that should give you a reason not to be stressed out. you know so I think that's what I'm trying to break it down to. For me, alignment, creating trusted relationship, speaking in simple English, and then making sure people are informed of the value that I'm creating and what's in it for everyone.
Amazing. What's in it for everyone? Yes. Wise words, Aisha. Wise words. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. So, for those who want to connect with you after this session, where would be the best place for them to reach out to you?
Use LinkedIn, and if there are questions or inquiries, reach out to hello@aishakhan.com.
Sounds good. All of Aisha's details will be placed in the description box following this video so you can connect with her after this. And if you enjoy the conversation today with Aisha and you are in HR or you're a senior executive leader looking to boost performance on your team, reach out to us and send us an email at info@resilientleadersinstitute.com, or you can DM me on LinkedIn as well, and we'll be happy to have a conversation on how we can boost performance on your team. But other than that, Aisha, any last words before we close out today's session?
Don't take life too seriously. It's a play field. Enjoy that experience. Become a blissful being so that others around you can also enjoy you.
I love it. I'm going to take that. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today, and we will see you in the next one. Bye now.
Okay.
Aisha, please hold on a second here.